You are what you repeatedly do. Therefore, excellence is not an act, it's a habit. That is a much wiser way of saying successful runners are simply those with successful habits. And when it comes to race days, your senses can get bombarded and you can get overwhelmed pretty quickly, leading to poor performances. But what if there was a way to make some really crucial parts of race day an automatic habit? No thought required, no getting overwhelmed, leaving you to do what you do best, run. Well, we've created 7 race day habits we think make us perform at our absolute best with the least stress possible. I'm basically just going to talk you through my race day process, the things that I go through habitually each time I race, whether it be a marathon, even a half marathon, just to get my mind in that place where I can then just go and execute when I stand on that start line. And for me, it always starts with fueling. And I'm not just talking about in the race, I will get to that. We're actually talking about before the race, and this is a relatively new one to me. I made some mistakes in the past, certainly in marathons particularly, that's where you can get caught out, and I'm the type of person that I eat a lot of carbs. So I was like, well, what's the worst that could happen? Like, I eat carbs, this is clearly carb loading, I don't need to put additional carbs in my body before it comes to the race. And then I started to watch a few videos, I watched Floberg, and I watched a few other people that were training for marathons, and I saw how seriously that they were taking their carb intake in the lead up to the race, and I started to think, I really need to look into this. So we did, and it was honestly mind-bending how many carbs I was off in terms of what a carb load is. So the one thing that you need to think about is whether you do a 2 or you do a 3-day carb load, because if you do a 3-day carb load, you can eat less carbohydrates per day. If you do a 2-day carb load, you have to have a slightly more aggressive approach and eat more carbohydrates. And the general rule of thumb, and this is going to shock you, is that if you're doing a 3-day carb load, it's about 8 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. So then if it's 2 days, it is 10 to 12 grams per kilogram body weight per day. So let's take me as an example. I'm a 63 kilogram human. If I was doing a 2-day carb load, I'd need to be eating at least 630 grams a day. Let's put that into perspective. A bagel is 50 grams. That's a lot. And you can get that in things like liquid carbs. You can get it in bagels, rice, potatoes, little and often approach. But it is unbelievable how much you actually need to put in your body for a proper carb load. And I will say, practice it before race day. We kind of do mini carb loads in the lead up. We do smaller 1-day experiments before our long runs in the lead up. But it's something that shocked me, and it's something that really prompted me from a really poor performance in Boston to look into it much more in depth and have a really good experience when it came to Chicago. Like, I mean, a really good experience. But that can't be the only thing. The other thing that you've got to think about is, what about the gels? What about your fueling in race? And again, there's a pretty standard set of what you need to go in terms of what you need to bring a good performance out. But generally, I aim for about 60 to 80 grams of carbohydrates per hour, which tends to be, I rotate on a 25 gram and then a 40 gram gel every 20 to 25 minutes. And believe it or not, it doesn't matter if you're running slower. That is still what people advise you to do, is still get it in. But as I've said to people that we coach in our marathon training groups, 140 gram gel every half an hour is still putting 80 into your body. And even if you're doing a 5-hour marathon, that's 10 gels. That is very manageable to take with you on the course. It's a lot, but it's manageable. So routinely and habitually planning the carbohydrates you're going to take before and during the race is going to really set you up for the race. And because we are all about removing any anxieties around the day where we can and controlling the controllables, another thing that I would recommend that you do habitually when it comes to a race day, particularly an A race, something that you place a lot of importance on, is to make sure you know how long it takes you to get to the start line of your race and what forms of transport you might need. Let's take London, for example. I needed a train and a walk and a tube. Let's take Seville. We needed to walk from the hotel. New York, we needed to know how long it would take from our hotel to walk to where the buses pick us up to take us to the start line. But because we did it in the days leading up to the race, we kind of could work backwards and know what time we could wake up, have our breakfast, get dressed, have to leave the hotel to walk to the start line. And that's navigation 101 for me to alleviate some of that anxiety, but also I make sure I familiarize myself with the route map, with knowing where are my drink stations, where is the elevation profile, where is there a hill, when's it coming. All of these things will lead you to a point where when you're in a race, you're just much more relaxed. You're not thinking about where the next drink is coming from. You're not thinking about if a hill is going to creep up on you. You've already got yourself to the start line in a relaxed manner. So I would very much recommend navigating beforehand to the start line and knowing what's coming ahead in the race. If you don't do that, especially if it's an A race, super important. Put your hands up, be honest. Who's gone to a race expo and seen a nice vest, bought it and tried to race in it the next day, and maybe you've got some chafing, maybe it was uncomfortable, maybe it was shorts, maybe it was new shoes, but our policy is nothing new on race day. And I'm not even talking just clothes. I'm talking about breakfasts. We don't eat anything differently. We go out, when we were in Chicago, we went out to a Trader Joe's and we bought all the stuff that we would usually eat for our breakfast over here in Thailand. Didn't rely on the breakfast in the hotel. We don't take any gels on the course if our stomach doesn't know them. I absolutely don't want to do a Paula Radcliffe. Sorry, Paula, but I don't want to do that on the side of the road if I can help it. Water, we're okay with, but we won't even touch unfamiliar drinks. I won't wear anything new. I won't do anything new. I will just make sure I am as familiar as possible with everything that's going on. And if you do that, at least you're skewing the odds in favor of having a good race. But we all know, there is an element of discomfort to a marathon regardless, but I'm trying to mitigate those unnecessary discomforts. So nothing new on race day is an absolute policy we stand by. And next up, we make sure not only that we do a flat lay, or at the very least a kit check. And if you don't know what a flat lay is, any influencer that you'll ever see out there in the world of Instagram or YouTube tends to lay all their kit out in what it would look like if they were running, socks, shorts, tops. It's a way of promoting that you're doing the race, I guess, but it's also a way of making sure you've got everything. What if you forgot to pack those socks? I've actually raced and forgotten my flip belt before, but I've realized that I didn't have my belt that carries all my gels because I did a flat lay the day before. If you do it in plenty of time as a matter of habit, then you're able to have a look. Right, what haven't I got? Okay, I haven't got my socks, I forgot to pack them, I've got enough time to get out there and get some. So if you do the flat lay last thing at night before the race, you're probably asking for trouble. But if you do it during the day when you still have facility to go out and get something if you haven't got it, then that's a really good way of reducing the anxiety around, have I got the right kit? Not only lay our kit out, but pin our numbers on the day before so that we don't have to be fumbling around at 4 a.m. or whatever it is in the morning. We have that already done. We just slip the top on, slip the shorts on, whatever, all the kit is ready. There's been a number of times I've forgotten something, mainly in triathlon, because it's ridiculous the amount that you have to think about. But if you do that kit check flat lay at least the day before and during the day, not the evening, you give yourself the best chance of being able to go and get a replacement of anything if you don't have it. And that's why it's so crucial. Now we are moving on to race day. And this is probably my favorite out of all of them. Is way before race day, we have sat down and we've come up with a number of goals, a plan. Because the marathon is one of those fickle mistresses that you cannot know what's going to happen to you, even if you've had the most perfect training block. And I think some people often have a plan, they stick to it, and when it doesn't go to plan, that can happen in the marathon, then they've got nothing to pivot to and things fall apart mentally quite quickly. I don't want that to happen to me. I don't want that to happen to you. So what I do is I tend to come up with probably 4 goals within my marathon. I've got my A goal. If everything goes perfectly, this is what happens. And I work my way backwards so that if it doesn't go perfectly, I can move on to my next goal. I'll give you an example from Chicago. My A goal was to run a 2:48. That's what I had been training for. It was 4 minutes per kilometer. But I wasn't silly. I knew it could go wrong. It went wrong in the last 2 races before that. So I had a B goal, which was let's try and run a PB. My PB was then 2:53 and I had a bandwidth of 5 minutes. So I was like, okay, if it doesn't go perfectly, I'll pivot. I can try to run a sub 2:53 and I still should be able to do that if not everything goes perfectly. If that didn't happen, if it really started to go pear-shaped, my C goal was to make sure that I get in under 3 hours, because I had this kind of overarching goal of being able to run all of my marathon majors in sub 3. And I'd got there so far. I'd done 3 in under 3 hours. So that was my C goal. And you know, if I wasn't going for a PB, that would still have represented like a win for me. If that didn't happen, I'm still not letting the demons in there. I'm still not going to let the negativity in. What I'm going to do is, my D goal is finish and be proud of it. You can always come back. And that was my D goal. So I actually had 4 goals. And then I could pivot. As it happened on the day, I didn't even need it. I ran an A+ goal that I didn't even know I had, and I ran 2:44. But you never know. That's the thing with the marathon, and to be able to have lots of goals to pivot, that keeps you really positive in your mindset. But I would say the main thing is my 4 goals. You can have 5, you can have as many as you want, and you can pivot between them as if it doesn't even matter. Like, just go, oh, A goal's not on, bang, next goal's on. And then you don't have to let the negativity in. We're actually going to go to the track for the next point, because I thought it was a really perfect example of making this point.
I feel like this is my default position when I make these videos, but trust me, it is for a purpose. I do like being down here, look, just on this track here. One habit I have picked up over time that I'm very fond of is that I bank the dark times. Like right now, 1200 meter repeat session in the midst of it and suffering bad. And that is the end of the 1200 meter repeat session. I've done 14 kilometers, I've got a kilometer cool down to go. And here's the thing about these sessions, about long, horrible trail races or runs, of anything in fact that is way outside of my comfort zone. I put it in my mind, I put it in the bank, so that when I'm doing a race like a marathon, my habit is that I go to darker places and I'm like, that's not too bad, I've been to way worse. Which I know sounds a bit demented, but I think runners generally are a bit demented, and the fact that I can pull on a bank of a lot worse sessions, a lot harder sessions that make me want to vomit, those kind of sessions make the marathon that bit more bearable. That bit more bearable, but it's a good habit to have, and it's one that I will do always.
And the last point, and I'm just going to riff here a little bit because it's something that's really close to my heart, is please let go of all of the preconceived notions of what would be the perfect day on marathon day or half marathon day or whatever it is. Here's the thing about all of us, in my opinion, this is what I believe. We are people that are invested in the process. The marathon result, the half marathon result, the outcome is not irrelevant, but it's very much secondary to the people that we are creating in the process. So when I stand on that start line, when I've controlled everything I can possibly control, I know how to get to the race start, I know how my fueling's going to go, I know what kit I'm wearing, I know the pace I'm going to try and run, I know it all. I'm going to smile and I'm going to let go, because marathons are tricky, they are fickle. Even when you've had your best training block ever, you are still absolutely not guaranteed of a good race. And that's just the way that they go. And you know what? That's okay. There's a famous surfer phrase, there's always another wave. And that's how I look at marathons. I will learn regardless of what happens to me, but I will enjoy the process more than everything. If I don't hit a goal, that's the marathon that day. So when I'm standing on that start line, I'm really aiming as a habit to now let go. It just reduces the pressure, it calms the heart rate, and that's very freeing. And if you let go, you probably are going to surprise yourself and have one of the best results that you've ever had. And you know what? If not, move on. There's always another wave. If the video brought a smile to your face or some value, then we'd love it if you'd subscribe to the channel so we can help you some more, but no hard sell. And you're going to love this video here, where I go into more detail about how to fuel during a marathon whilst I'm actually running a marathon. Pretty painful. 4 weeks until Berlin though. See you soon.